In this episode, we are looking at remote access, which is one of those support topics that feels very normal now, but still needs careful thinking every time it is used. A beginner may hear the names of remote tools and think the main question is which one lets a technician get into the system the fastest. Speed does matter, especially when someone cannot work and needs help quickly, but that is not the only thing that matters. The technician also has to think about what kind of access is really needed, how much control the tool gives, whether the user has to stop working, and what security risk comes with that level of access. Some methods are great for full interactive support, while others are better for private administration or protected network access. Good support is not just about getting connected. It is about choosing the method that fits the problem, protects the user, protects the organization, and causes the least unnecessary disruption while the issue is being fixed. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.Me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Remote access means a technician or user connects to a system from another location instead of sitting physically in front of it. That simple idea is important because it explains why remote access is so useful in modern support work. People work from home, travel with laptops, use cloud services, and connect to systems in offices, data rooms, and other buildings the technician may not be near. If every support problem required someone to walk to the device in person, many simple issues would take much longer to solve. Remote access helps support teams save time, reduce travel, and respond faster to problems. At the same time, remote access creates a path into systems and networks, which means it can also create new risk if the wrong method is chosen or if the right method is used carelessly. For beginners, that is the key idea to remember from the start. A remote connection is helpful, but it is also powerful, and powerful tools always need good judgment behind them. A technician should first understand why remote access is used in the first place. Sometimes the goal is to see the user's screen and help with something simple, such as an application problem or a setting the user cannot find. Other times the goal is to reach a business network from outside the office so work resources can be used safely. In other cases, a technician may need to manage a device or server without taking over the full desktop experience. These are not all the same situation, so they do not all call for the same access method. A beginner should resist the habit of thinking there is one best remote tool for everything. Good support starts by asking what needs to be done, what system is involved, how much access is needed, and whether the user should stay involved while the work is happening. Once those questions are answered, the choice becomes clearer. A support connection should fit the task, not just reflect the technician's favorite tool or fastest shortcut. One common method is Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, which is widely used to connect to and control another Windows system from a distance. With RDP, the remote system can often be used almost as if the technician were sitting in front of it, which makes it useful for support tasks that require full desktop access. This can be helpful when a system needs direct work that is easier to perform through the full graphical interface than through simpler remote tools. The strength of RDP is convenience and control, but that same strength means it must be handled carefully. If a technician gains full desktop access, that technician can make major changes very quickly, and that means the connection should be limited to the right people, the right systems, and the right situations. For a beginner, the lesson is not just that RDP is powerful. The lesson is that full remote control should be used when full control is actually needed, not simply because it is available. Another common method is Virtual Private Network, VPN, and this is important because a VPN does something different from a full remote desktop session. A VPN creates a protected connection between the user or technician and a private network, which can allow access to internal resources as if the person were more directly connected to the organization's environment. In simple terms, a VPN is often used to reach the network safely from outside, not necessarily to take over a specific desktop on its own. This matters because beginners sometimes confuse network access with desktop control. A VPN may let someone reach shared files, internal applications, or management systems, but it does not automatically mean the same experience as sitting inside another computer's screen. The benefit of a VPN is that it can support secure remote work and support access across distance. The risk is that if it is poorly protected or given too broadly, it can open a larger path into the organization than the task really requires. Secure Shell (SSH) is another remote access method, and it is often used for command line access to systems, especially in Unix-like or Linux environments, though it can appear in other places too. For a beginner, the easiest way to think about SSH is that it gives text-based remote control instead of a full desktop view. That makes it useful when the technician needs to manage a system without using a full graphical session. SSH can be efficient and low in bandwidth, and it can allow precise administrative work on systems that do not need a full-screen takeover. It also creates less user disruption in some situations because the technician may work in the background rather than taking over the user's active desktop. Still, SSH should not sound harmless just because it looks simpler. A text-based connection can still provide deep control over a system, which means the same basic rules apply. The technician should use it only when appropriate, protect access carefully, and understand exactly what level of control is being granted. Remote assistance tools are another major category, and these are often closer to what many people picture when they imagine everyday support help. A remote assistance session usually lets the technician view or share control of the user's screen so the problem can be seen directly while the user remains part of the process. This can be very helpful for beginner-level support issues because the technician can watch what the user is seeing, explain steps clearly, and sometimes let the user keep learning while the fix happens. These tools are especially useful when the issue is tied to the user experience, such as a confusing setting, an application behavior problem, or a mistake that is easier to correct with guided help than with a full separate login. The big advantage here is that the session can be collaborative. The user knows help is happening, the technician can communicate through the process, and the access can feel less hidden or invasive than deeper administrative methods. The downside is that it may not be the right tool for tasks that require silent background work or deeper system control. There are also similar options, including web-based remote support tools, vendor-specific support features, and methods like virtual network computing, VNC. A beginner does not need to memorize every product name to understand the bigger idea. Different remote access methods offer different levels of visibility, control, convenience, and risk. Some are meant for shared support sessions where the user can watch and approve what is happening. Others are meant for private administrative work where the technician needs more direct system control. Some methods mainly help the user reach the organization's internal environment, while others help the technician reach the user's device. This is why the first step should never be clicking the first tool available and hoping for the best. Good support means matching the access method to the task. The more a technician understands the purpose of each type of remote access, the less likely that technician is to create extra risk or unnecessary disruption while trying to solve a simple problem. One of the best habits a beginner can build is thinking about least necessary access. That means the technician should choose the method that gives enough access to solve the problem without giving more access than the situation requires. If a user only needs help reaching internal files from home, a VPN may be more appropriate than full desktop control. If a technician only needs to guide a user through a visible application issue, remote assistance may make more sense than a deep administrative session. If a system needs command line work in the background, SSH may fit better than a full graphical takeover. This way of thinking matters because extra access means extra risk. The more power a method gives, the more harm it can cause if used carelessly, misconfigured, or abused. Beginners sometimes focus only on which tool seems easiest for the technician. A better question is which tool solves the problem well, while keeping exposure as narrow as possible. That question leads to better choices almost every time. Security has to stay in the picture during every remote connection. A remote access method may be convenient, but if it is not protected well, it can become a serious weakness. This is why support teams care about strong authentication, approved tools, secure connection methods, and limiting who can use what. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, is one important protection because it adds another layer beyond just a password. That matters especially for remote access, because a stolen password becomes much more dangerous when it opens a path into company systems from anywhere. Technicians should also avoid informal shortcuts, such as using personal remote tools, sharing accounts, or leaving remote access enabled longer than necessary. A beginner should understand that a secure support environment is built from small, careful choices. Use approved tools, use proper authentication, limit access, and close the path when the work is done. Convenience is valuable, but not when it creates a standing door into the environment that no longer needs to be open. User disruption is another part of the decision, and beginners should learn to think about it on purpose instead of noticing it only after the user gets frustrated. Some remote methods take over the screen or interrupt the active session, which can stop the user from working while the technician is connected. Other methods allow support work with less visible disruption or let the user stay involved in the process. That difference matters, especially when the user is in the middle of a meeting, handling customers, or trying to finish important work under time pressure. A technician should think about whether the user needs to watch, whether the user needs to approve actions, whether the work can happen in the background, and whether the system may need a restart or temporary disconnect. Good support is not just secure. It is considerate. Choosing the right remote access method can make the experience smoother for the user and reduce the feeling that support has become a second problem on top of the original problem. Communication is especially important during remote support because the person asking for help may feel uneasy about someone else connecting to the device. The technician should explain what method will be used, what the user can expect to see, whether control of the keyboard or mouse will be shared, and whether any interruption is likely. If the session is interactive, the technician should stay clear and calm while working so the user understands what is happening. If deeper access is required, the technician should still explain why that level of access is needed and what steps will happen next. This builds trust and helps prevent confusion. A beginner should remember that remote access can feel personal to the user because the screen, files, and applications may all be visible during support. A professional explanation lowers anxiety and keeps the session from feeling hidden or mysterious. It also helps the user know when the session is over, which is an important part of keeping support clear and controlled. There are also several common mistakes that beginners should learn to avoid early. One mistake is using the most powerful remote method just because it feels faster, even when a simpler approach would solve the problem with less risk. Another is forgetting that network access and desktop control are not the same thing and choosing a tool that does not really fit the job. Some technicians rely on unapproved remote tools because they seem convenient, which creates security, privacy, and support problems later. Others leave remote access enabled after the work is done, which is risky because it creates a path that no longer has a clear purpose. Another mistake is not thinking about the user's experience. A connection that solves the issue but surprises the user, interrupts important work, or leaves the user unsure about what happened is not ideal support. Good choices come from slowing down just enough to think about need, risk, and impact before connecting. A simple example makes the comparison easier to understand. Imagine a remote employee cannot reach a shared internal application from home. That problem may point first toward a VPN issue, because the user may need safe network access into the organization before anything else works. Now imagine a different case where the user can connect fine, but the application opens with the wrong settings and the user is confused about what to click. That sounds more like a good case for remote assistance, because seeing the user's screen and guiding the interaction may solve the problem quickly with less deep access. In another situation, a technician may need to manage a server process in the background, and SSH may be the best fit because it allows focused control without taking over a user desktop. Finally, if a full Windows desktop needs direct remote operation, RDP may make the most sense. The lesson is simple. Start with the problem, then choose the method. Do not start with the method and force every problem to match it. By the end of this topic, the main idea should be clear. Remote access methods such as RDP, VPN, SSH, remote assistance, and similar options are all useful, but they solve different kinds of support problems and bring different levels of control, convenience, security risk, and user disruption. A good technician does not ask only which method will connect fastest. A good technician asks which method gives the right access for this problem, protects the environment, respects the user, and avoids unnecessary exposure. That means thinking about purpose, least necessary access, authentication, approved tools, user awareness, and what happens when the work is finished. For A+ beginners, this is one of the most important habits to build. Remote access should feel normal, but it should never feel casual. When you choose remote methods with care, you solve problems effectively without creating new ones at the same time.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.